nobody would have projected that Indiana's in this spot as one of the 4 best teams in the Big Ten Conference this year. Of course, like, we're skeptics because we see this and we're like, all right, when's the shoe going to drop?
Never daunted, Cronin. Never daunted. I mean, for the first time in our lifetimes, we have a football team to be proud of as Indiana alums. When did you believe in what Cignetti was selling?
I think it was the Maryland game because that was an ugly first half. There were turnovers. It was raining. It just didn't feel like they were on solid ground. And then they win that game. And seeing like Mike Loxley just looking defeated at the end of that and watching Curt Cignetti in a pretty packed Memorial Stadium. Remember, that was the game that he sent out like Friday or whatever. He sent out the email. I don't know. He hacked into the IU email system and said like, hey, every student, like, forget what you're doing. You
Study
have to
later.
be at do whatever you're doing later, be at the game. And that's the moment for me because I went to the game the week prior to that when they played Charlotte and they won and they were 4-0. And it's like, all right, you can beat up on some cupcakes. They crushed Western Illinois. And so I was like, I'm not ready to buy in and believe in this team until they beat a Big Ten opponent. And then they did. And then they beat Nebraska. And then they end up beating Washington. And they go on the road and beat Michigan State. Like, there were so many moments within the September and October months of the season that made me think every week I have more belief in this football program. I have more belief in this head coach. It's not gimmicky as much as it was like flash in the pan right away. It's like, no, this is real. This is sustainable. And so to watch how not only they transformed the storylines in college football this year in a 12-team college football playoff, they transformed the city of Bloomington. That is a basketball town through and through. And to hear and see people that I know who live down there, of course, the student body, everybody buying into something that like normally you don't in the months of September through December, it's wild. And I'm really excited to see where they go for the first round playoff game, December 20th or 21st. I don't know if I'll be able to get there, but I'm glad that I got one IU game in person this year, even though it was like back when they were still in their non-conference schedule.
Courtney, for the first time in my life, and I've gone back to Bloomington to go to IU games and meet friends for homecoming a few times, and they lose everything. For the first time in my life, Indiana won a football game when I got on an airplane. I flew down to Pasadena. I met up with our friend Galen Clavio. We talked about you. We were saying, where could this year go? I don't know. Let's just see what we do. Try not to get embarrassed today at the Rose Bowl. At the end of that game, Tom Ackerman, you know Tom Ackerman from KMOX in St. Louis. He's an IU guy too. We're sitting together. We're like, what do we do? Indiana winning this game. What do we go over there? We sing the fight song. What do we don't even know what to do. And then, the rest of the year, just Indiana anxiety. You're sort of always waiting for the other shoe to drop or the injury that comes about that cancels the entire year. And it never happened. And Cignetti is the real deal. You can Google him. I mean, this is the most no bullshit guy who has stepped on campus. I already got him up there with Doc Councilman, Jerry Yeagley, Bobby Knight. I think he might be the fourth face already after just one season, with all due respect to Branch McCracken. This guy is a made man in Bloomington for life.
Well, I mean, they gave him the contract extension 10 games into the season. Like, I think they're telling you that they believe that part too. And yes, they gave the contract extension and they go in no show in the second half at Ohio State. I don't think that derails all of the goodwill that was built up in this program up until that point. And they're going to be playing in the college football playoff. The first year it extends to 12 teams. Nowhere in any wild alternate universe did you think that could happen. Nobody would have projected that Indiana's in this spot as one of the 4 best teams in the Big Ten Conference this year. And that's a great place to be in. Now, of course, like, we're skeptics because we see this. We're like, all right, when's the shoe going to drop? I felt that after the Nebraska game, after Curtis Rourke injures his thumb and you're like, all right, he's not playing against Washington. Well, he doesn't play against Washington and everything's fine. Taven Jackson was able to manage this offense, which incredible story in its own right, because everybody's jumping into the transfer portal. He's a leftover from the Tom Allen era. He decides he wants to stay and delivers quite possibly one of the biggest moments when game day is there and all the spotlight is on Indiana and Bloomington collectively. So I really hope this is sustainable. And I think that the message that needs to be sent to boosters, the basketball boosters, all the people who are interested in getting these great recruiting classes for men's and women's hoops, Start putting the money towards football, because football at the end of everything, even in the 1-in-11 seasons that I've covered at IU before, football's the moneymaker. It will always be the moneymaker. So make sure that you follow the smart money here and start pouring in so they can tap into a huge NIL fund, pouring in so they can retain great assistant coaches. I mean, Tino Sinceri, who's their offensive coordinator, is going to UCLA. He's about to replace Eric Bieniemy. And you get that. That always happens when there's upward mobility. But to be able, for Curt Cignetti to be able to sustain the success that he's had in year one, it's going to be difficult, because he brought all of his JMU transfers with him, and they brought Curtis Rourke from Ohio. Like, the recruiting element, the NIL, the transfer portal element, you got to make sure that now that you've given yourself a nice head start, that you can maintain that, and hopefully that the boosters and the finances that come from the university can, back that too. So it's more than just like a 1-year blip on the radar. We're talking about how great 2024 is. We were talking about how great 2020 was, and then you have a drought after that. That's what I hope they can avoid.
I have no expectations of becoming Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. I've always said, can we just be Iowa? Can we go
be relevant?
Can we go to a really good bowl game once or twice a decade? Flirt with 10-win seasons occasionally. That's all. I'm not greedy. I'm really not when it comes to Indiana football. And we've never had a season like this. We used to be the doormat that major college football wiped its cleats off on. So just, God, I don't want to say this because I really don't mean it, but even if it was just a one-off 1 year, thank God we got it. I never even thought we'd get this. It's got to keep going, though, and I really think Cignetti has the right attitude to do it. I mean, he's like irrepentantly kind of a dick about how good he wants this all to be, and that's what you have to be, because the minute you start half-stepping in Bloomington, everyone's going to get lazy around you. So I love how frosty he is. Let's talk about actual NFL talent on this year's team. I think Karmarr, it's too bad he's 6'1". If he were 6'4", he'd be a day 2 pick at worst. I think he's a day 2 or 3 pick right now. I think Rourke is a day 2 or 3 pick. What do you think?
I think Curtis Rourke's the most interesting. Like, think about the last time Indiana had a quarterback prospect that, like, that wasn't just like a fifth,
it was
sixth,
Penix, and he transferred.
Yeah, and does he count? I mean, yes, he counts to us, but like, counts to us. We'll claim him. But no, I mean, Curtis Rourke's an interesting one. I really want to go to the Senior Bowl in January, because I feel like that'll be a spot where you get to watch someone like that, who is one of the big names in college football, because a lot of these guys are juniors, and they don't end up going to the Senior Bowl because they're juniors. So to watch him and the rise that he has been on as somebody who's not the Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, top of the top in college football right now, but he's like a step behind even like the Jalen Milrose and like the next group to come in. To me, that's a late day 2 pick. And the intangibles that he has within this game, the arm talent, like all of the things that make him a great quarterback for Indiana, I feel like are things that you hear these draft analysts talking about now that will translate pretty seamlessly to the NFL level.
I could not have asked for more. Courtney, thank you so very, very much. That was wonderful. I love talking sports with you. Let's do it again sometime in the near future. I'd love to. I know how busy you are. Thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Tune into the Damon Bruce Show live on YouTube every weekday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific.